The world stands on the brink of a transformation that defines a new era. What was once a quiet struggle, played out in diplomatic corridors and secret meetings, now reveals itself as a clear and ominous movement. We are witnessing the formation of blocs, an alignment of forces deciding who are allies and who are rivals. On one side are the Western democracies, which have held global influence for decades. On the other, an emerging and steadfast alliance, the axis of dictatorships. The axis of dictatorships, as some have begun to call it, grows stronger as Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, and Venezuela unite in an alliance that challenges the global order. Each of these countries, with its own interests and ideologies, now finds common ground, a strong opposition to what they view as Western domination. This bloc moves quietly, strengthening ties, while the rest of the world watches with apprehension and uncertainty. Now, one of the most feared alliances is taking shape, the military partnership between Russia and North Korea. This is a historic moment, a dividing line between uncertain peace and the potential for a conflict that could alter the world's course. We're talking about a strategic collaboration, a pact that brings forth the possibility of a real and dangerous threat. In this video, we'll uncover what's truly happening behind the scenes of this agreement, exploring the implications this new alliance may have not only for the West, but for the stability of the entire planet. This alliance that now looms with growing strength didn't emerge overnight. It's the result of a history of disagreements, interests, and rivalries that have challenged the global order over recent decades. Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, and Venezuela countries with diverse realities and cultures share a powerful point of convergence: the desire to resist Western dominance. To understand the formation of this axis, we need to look beyond the headlines. Russia and China, the primary powers, realize that by joining forces, they can resist sanctions, interventions, and isolation. North Korea, historically isolated, sees this alliance as a chance to strengthen itself and receive direct support for its regime. Iran, continually pressured by sanctions and regional tensions, views this coalition as a safe harbor to pursue its nuclear and economic ambitions. And Venezuela, deep in internal crises, aligns itself in search of political and economic support. These countries, initially united by the need to survive under external pressures, have found a path to mutual support. For them, this bloc represents much more than a political alliance. It is a cry of resistance. With each country contributing strategic resources, be it weapons, oil, or diplomatic backing, the axis of dictatorships takes shape, with an influence capable of challenging the most powerful. Among all the collaborations that the axis of dictatorships has fostered, one stands out and raises a global alarm: the military alliance between Russia and North Korea. Until recently, North Korea was seen as an isolated country, whose presence in global affairs was limited to its nuclear threats and regional confrontations. However, this alliance with Russia positions it in a new role, with a direct impact on the battlefield and international politics. This partnership is not merely a diplomatic exchange, it involves concrete and high-risk actions. Since mid-2022, reports have circulated that containers of North Korean ammunition and weapons are being sent to Russia, fueling Russia's military efforts in Ukraine. Recently, this collaboration took an even more concerning step. North Korean soldiers were officially deployed to fight alongside Russian forces. This is a strategic move that strengthens the Russian contingent and reaffirms North Korea's commitment to supporting its ally. These actions show that the axis of dictatorships is no longer a hypothetical threat or rhetoric of resistance. It is a concrete reality, where words turn into actions and support translates into troops and arms on the battlefield. This advancement in military cooperation marks a new and dangerous chapter in the rivalry between blocs, raising tensions to a level that the world cannot ignore. The alliance between Russia and North Korea is more than an isolated partnership between two countries. it carries profound implications for the balance of power on the global stage, placing the West in an increasingly vulnerable position. This partnership not only bolsters Russia's military strength amid the conflict with Ukraine, but also encourages other members of the axis of dictatorships to intensify their actions and challenge the restrictions imposed by Western democracies. For the West, this represents a multifaceted threat. With North Korea supplying ammunition and soldiers, Russia can sustain the war without suffering the same resource depletion that is becoming increasingly burdensome for Ukraine and its allies. This mutual support between authoritarian regimes also signals to the world that strategic alliances can easily evolve into a bloc of resistance against Western influence. This axis, united by ideals of resistance and dominance, creates an unpredictable scenario where sudden, unforeseen moves can destabilize international peace. Moreover, this new alliance sets a dangerous precedent. Countries like China and Iran are watching closely, seeing the possibility that this coalition of military and economic support among authoritarian regimes may extend further, providing mutual backing that directly challenges the established status quo. We are facing an era in which alliances are no longer merely economic or ideological, they are armed and ready for possible battles in the near future. In the midst of this alignment of forces, Russia's political and diplomatic support for North Korea further escalates the geopolitical risk for the West. This support is not merely symbolic. It occurs in highly influential arenas, such as the United Nations Security Council, where Russia, as a permanent member, wields its veto power to shield its North Korean ally from new sanctions and international resolutions. This grants North Korea a diplomatic shield, allowing it to continue its military and nuclear activities with fewer restrictions. Diplomatic support is a strategic advantage because North Korea, which historically relied almost exclusively on China for political backing, now sees Russia as a viable alternative. This move strengthens North Korea's position on the international stage, signaling to the West that North Korea is not alone and no longer dependent on a single partner. This shared protection network boosts the confidence of authoritarian regimes to make decisions that might previously have been deemed risky, knowing they have an influential ally to defend them against global criticism and pressure. This support not only protects, but also legitimizes North Korea's actions, showing that any attempt to isolate Kim Jong-un's regime will be met with resistance. In this way, North Korea finds a new space to expand its influence and test limits, strengthening itself while openly challenging the Western-imposed order. The presence of North Korean soldiers and the steady supply of ammunition are factors that change the landscape of the war in Ukraine, directly affecting the balance of power. Russia, which had been struggling to maintain its military capability due to high casualty rates and resource depletion, now finds new momentum with North Korea's support. This aid not only allows Russia to maintain the intensity of its attacks, but also preserves its strategic reserves to confront Ukrainian resistance. This new reality on the battlefield represents a crucial advantage for Moscow. The entry of foreign troops into the conflict, even in relatively small numbers, has both a psychological and practical effect on the Russians and their allies. For Ukraine and the West, this shift in dynamics means the conflict may drag on even longer, demanding ongoing support that is becoming increasingly difficult to sustain. With North Korean supplies consistently replenishing the fighting efforts, the war in Ukraine ceases to be merely a regional issue and instead becomes the stage for a global power struggle. This alliance not only strengthens Russia's position in the conflict, but also marks a turning point where the axis of dictatorships showcases its influence on international disputes. The alliance between Russia and North Korea places the West in a delicate position, forcing its leaders to reconsider strategies in light of this new reality. The intensification of the conflict and the growing influence of the axis of dictatorships require the United States, Europe, and their allies to reassess the military and economic support they provide to Ukraine. For these countries, the threat is clear: If the alliance between Russia and North Korea continues to strengthen, Ukraine's resources and capabilities could be quickly overwhelmed, leading to a new power configuration in the region and globally. In practical terms, this means the West may need to bolster its support for Ukraine even further, whether with weaponry, intelligence, or even direct logistical assistance. This entails a significant financial and strategic commitment at a time when many nations are already grappling with internal challenges and questions about the cost of maintaining prolonged assistance. The possibility of more direct involvement, such as sending troops or establishing new military bases in the region, is becoming an increasingly relevant discussion. This scenario also places pressure on future elections and political decisions in Western countries. The stance that leaders take on the Ukraine conflict could determine the stability of the Western bloc, challenging democracies to either unite or, potentially, reveal divisions that would only strengthen the axis of dictatorships. We are at a decisive moment in global history. The alliance between Russia and North Korea marks a new phase where geopolitics takes on bolder and more unpredictable contours. This partnership and the strengthening of the axis of dictatorships are not only a military threat, but also a clear signal that the world is moving towards a division of spheres of influence, where rival blocs are unafraid to challenge traditional limits. The future of global geopolitics will depend on how the West responds to this threat. The ability to adapt, make unified decisions, and invest in defense and security will be crucial to maintaining the balance of power. For viewers, it is essential to stay alert to these developments, as the coming years will bring new configurations and alliances that will shape not only the geopolitical map, but also the daily lives of all of us. As this power struggle advances, I invite you to keep following these developments, seeking to understand the reasons and consequences behind each move in this complex dance of forces. The axis of dictatorships continues to consolidate, and it is up to us, as citizens, to stay informed and prepared for what lies ahead. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to leave a like, comment with your thoughts, and share with those interested in geopolitics and economics. And of course, subscribe to the channel to stay updated on future videos.